still walking around a park in Kiev in the drizzle. So there's no girls around right now. There was thunderstorms overnight and it only stopped pissing down about an hour ago. So I don't think there's going to be any game to be had, not for the next couple of hours at least. So perhaps I'll talk a little about a theoretical point for the Womanizer's Bible. Right. Something I've been doing over the last year and a half now for a while it was my gut instinct telling me to do this, but as usually happens for me, I believe for most people, is your gut is right, your instinct is right, and it often takes your logical forebrain a while, months, sometimes even years, to catch up with what your gut is telling you. Right? There's very good evolutionary reasons for this. Right? It is instinct, i.e. gut feel, which is what's kept us alive as a species all these hundreds of thousands of years, or however long it was since humans became humans. Right? There are certain things that your body does not allow your brain to control. For example, your breathing. Right? Breathing is such a crucial thing to do, and so mechanical, so not requiring any kind of judgment, that your brain just doesn't have any part of it. Your DNA is pretty much evolved to say, look, brain, you don't get to control this. Not, other than, you can hold your breath or anything, but on a normal basis, you just don't think of your breathing, it just happens. And you can't even overrule your breathing, right? You can't hold your breath forever. Nobody can hold their breath till they die. If you die of suffocation, it's because of an external thing, right? But, just try it, right? Do what those little children do, right? Promise to hold your breath until you die if you don't get your way, right? You always end up going, breathing. Right, so same with your heart, right? Your conscious brain doesn't tell your heart to beat. Now, a lot of these self-help things that you'll hear about are trying to use tips, hacks and training to control your breathing and control your heart rate, for example, to reduce stress or improve performance. But what these things all have in common is they're bloody difficult and take loads of work, right? The basic learning point is that nature has decreed that you don't get to control certain parts of your body's systems. They're just too important to let your brain near them, right? It's a bit like, it's like a Ferrari is too important to let a woman drive it, So, what does that mean? How can we apply this to game? Well, there's this really good book by Gavin de Beck or something. I always forget his surname. I wrote about it recently. It's called The Gift of Fear. And the basic thesis of this book is that you should listen to your instinct when it comes to feeling fear, because that's what alerts you to danger. And that in modern society, we are too much inclined to trust our logical forebrain and to overrule our instinct. Right, so he would come up with all these cases of victims of muggings and rapings and attempted murders and stuff. He masses all this evidence, and he's saying that so many of them will say after the fact that they had this weird, icky sense of fear or danger, and then they just thought, nah, it's not a problem, and then of course they were murdered, raped, fucking whatever. And he also has all these near-miss stories there's some good examples of girls who managed to actually avoid getting raped or murdered under certain attacks, where what happened is their instinct of fear just alerted them to something, some subtle thing going on that they couldn't put their finger on, but they acted on it, and that saved their lives, or they avoided the raping. So his whole book is talking about that. But if you could summarise it really quickly, it would be trust your instinct, right? Don't allow your logical forebrain to overrule your instinct by saying, nah, it's not a problem, don't worry about it, I'm just being stupid, right? Trust your instinct. Now, you could probably say that the entire history of Western intellectual thought, from the Greeks up through the Enlightenment, has been denying instinct, right? It's been an intellectualization of human life, putting everything into moral codes, into laws, into universal principles, into, trust the law above the instinct, whether it's a literal law, law of the land, or it's a moral law, or it's like a system of expertise. But there's been this idea that we can pretty much deny nature, right? Much of modern life is about denying nature, in the hubris that nature's not going to bite you in the ass about it. Right, so, the trannies are the latest example of this. But, plastic surgery is an example of this. Drug use is an example of this. There's this idea that we can somehow beat nature, that we can get one over on it, that the mind is more powerful than the body. Now, I don't want to go into that particular debate. It's pretty long, and I've only got a partial knowledge of it. But for the purposes of this podcast on instinct, I would say that a lot of guys come into the game and they're just not very close to their instinct, right? They're like the Edward Norton character in Fight Club, right? They're kind of like washed out ciphers, right? Like empty men in office jobs with no real sense of who they are, what they want, right? Chodes, right? That's the word for them, chodes, right? Now, chodes don't really listen to their instinct, and they don't trust their instinct because they've become so disassociated from it that they don't really know what signals it's trying to give them. I'll give an example of that. Like, I know in martial arts, like Jeff Thompson writes a lot about fear. He's a good writer on fear. And he says that your typical chode, when he's confronted with danger, like say a mugging or some guy pushes him in a bar, he gets an adrenaline dump, but he's conditioned to believe that adrenaline dump is fear rather than preparedness. So he suggests a mental shift, and he has like training routines to improve this, but he basically says, look, you have to learn to identify adrenaline as your body preparing you, right? It's making you ready. It's not fear. So what'll happen is a typical chode, right? Think of it like a little fucking Brooklyn hipster with a faggot beard and little scrawny arms like fucking like a pipe cleaner. And you push him over, and his immediate fucking reaction will be to curl up into a fetal position. Right? Because he's just processes everything as fear. Well, if you take that chode and you get him out doing day game, like, what's he going to feel? Approach anxiety. He's going to feel approach anxiety as fear, right? Fear of the woman, fear of rejection, fear of looking stupid, fear of finding out he's a loser, fear of finding out girls don't fancy him, fear that he'll never get the skill. Whatever his particular fear is, right, it's going to be fear. That's how he's going to process it. Now, I think approach anxiety, if you can reframe that more as preparedness, right, that it is getting you up and ready and sharp to put your best game on, then that's going to be a healthier response. You're going to be less likely to be paralysed by it, right? So anyway, that's a bit of an aside. Let's get back to instinct. So, chodes don't really trust their instinct. And a lot of game is about retraining chodes out of their bad associations and their poor instinct into their more masculine instinct. So you'll all be familiar with the term second nature. Right, that means you've practiced something, drilled it, and acquired such a competence with your muscle memory and your associations that you do the right thing every time. Right? So I was reading some quote the other day. It said, amateurs practice until they can do it right, professionals practice until they can't do it wrong. So that would be an example of second nature. Right? So I always use Roger Federer as an example, but when Roger Federer does a serve or an approach shot or a chip or whatever, he just does it right. It's second nature to do it right. Like, he can't even do it wrong. Like, I don't know if it's even possible for Roger Federer to deliberately miss-hit a ball. Like, it's become second nature. So with chodes, the problem is they're divorced from their instinct. They don't trust their instinct, and they've patterned this kind of behaviour in their muscle memory over all the decades of being a chode, in all the mental associations they've made, like mislabeling stuff, misunderstanding stuff, allowing their logical forebrain to take over their instinct. So, they're just this mess. So what often happens is these chodes, at some point in the day game journey, they'll get this feeling of rightness, right? Of like, they'll just like, it's like when they discover male-female polarity, for example, and they finally start chatting to girls who are genuinely feminine, and they do it from a masculine frame. You just get this feeling of rightness, like all is correct in the world, that the pieces are fitting, and you can wonder, like, why wasn't it always like this? Like, how did I go all these decades being this, like, feminized pussy, dealing with masculine women? Like, that's not real. This is how the world's supposed to be. This is when, like, karma's really working. So a lot of guys, when they're walking out doing day game, chatting up birds, getting eyes sparkle, getting the girls to giggle and coo, they just feel this is so right, this is so correct. And I think part of that is what is happening is it's bringing your forebrain into alignment with your hindbrain, with your instinct. You're bringing you're clearing out all this like tangle of wires, right? Like internally it shows, like, you know, when you open your drawer which has all your headphones and cables in and everything's just a fucking jumble, right? That's kind of like a chode internally. So doing day game, doing inner game, you know, it's this process of straightening out until everything's orderly and in the right place. And you get this overwhelming feeling of rightness about it, that you're living your mission, that you're doing what you're on this planet to do. So that means you're training your instinct so that now second nature is correct, right? You're doing the right things by second nature. So your instinct is in alignment with your forebrain. Fucking hell, there's a girl just wandering around begging to be open, but she's got like narrow hips and small features. I've got a funny feeling she's jailbait. It's really hard to tell. It's like I decide to do the podcast, or do I talk to her? It's all the thing. I might talk to her anyway. But no, it's got to be jailbait. No. Anyway, right, where was I? Right, so after this long discussion about instinct, what am I trying to get to? Let's bring this back to day again. Right, so one thing I try to do to reduce the grind, you know, which I was talking about in the previous podcast, is now I don't like to do what I call blind opens. I define a blind open as where you have no reason to talk to the girl other than that she's pretty and solo. That's it, right? But that there's nothing about the girl which is giving you any indication that she is either available or into you or amenable to day game. Right, so it's blind in that you're just rolling the dice, right? Cold approach, open the girl, find out where you're at. Right, you don't know where you're at until you open. Right, blind approach. Now that, as you'll probably be aware, is almost everybody doing almost all day game. Right, now there's like a loose kind of theorization of how to reduce that, but as far as I know, no one's really articulated it. So I'm going to articulate it. Right. Day game, as I discussed in my previous post, is a bit of a grind. You lose most hands, and then you get anteed out of existence. You've got to manage your chips to make sure you win the big hands. Right, now here's an obvious question, right? How do you avoid getting anteed out of existence? How can you make it where, imagine you could have a reasonable guess of what your first two cards are before you have to put the ante in. Wouldn't that be good, right? You'd not waste all your energy. So what I try to do now is pre-approach calibration, which is where you do things in a certain way to choose targets who have something about them which indicates they're a higher probability of success than the average, right, than just any normal pretty girl walking around. And also certain things you can do to increase your odds of getting a good response when you finally do open. Right, so there's two parts of that, right? Choose the right girl, and there's also conduct yourself in a manner pre-open to increase the odds of the open going well. So what's that? Right, let's start with the first one. Now, most day gamers will be aware of the idea of the dreamy girl, right? The girl acting dreamy. Most guys will be aware of the idea of the rucksack and trainers tourist girl, right? I mean, I'm looking at one right now. It's the one I'm trying to decide, is she or is she not jailbait? Because she has a little rucksack on, she's got trainers on, she's got form-fitting, reasonably tight clothes, she's walking around by herself, she just bought a cup of coffee, and just wandering around the park taking pictures, right? And looking around, and she might have looked at me a couple of times. So that, to me, suggests she's a high probability. In fact, I'm going to talk right now. Let's just find out. Excuse me. Stop. Do you speak English?
A little bit.
Good, because I can't speak any Ukrainian whatsoever. But I just noticed you look very rock and roll. It's quite nice. I thought, you're taking pictures and stuff, like a tourist, but you look completely Ukrainian.
Oh, I don't know if it's good or bad. I think it's not a compliment.
Well, right. Obviously, I'm not from here, but before I came to Kiev, my mum said to me, she said, be very careful of the Ukrainian girls. I said, why, Mum? She said, well, they're all very pretty, they cook really good, but they're all a bit crazy. That's what she said.
Oh, hello.
Hey, how are you doing? My name's Nick.
Karina.
I'm just chatting to your friend here. So, and your name?
Marina.
Marina.
Yes.
Nice to meet you, ladies.
Karina. Marina is Karina.
It's like, it could be like a comedy act,
Yeah.
you know? You could be on stage doing some sort of thing like that. So you guys you're from here, are you?
Yeah.
Alright. I noticed her just wandering around taking photos like she was lost. So I was wondering what that was all about. Now I know she was waiting for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, look, have a good day. It's nice to meet you both. Take care. Right. So that is it's kind of a proof of the theory, right? So that was a higher probability open, but obviously the reason she was wandering around was waiting for a friend. There you go. But what you'll notice is when I did chat to her, she opened really easily. What you didn't see, because this is audio, she gave me a nice big eye sparkle. So that was a higher probability set, but I was 5 minutes too late. So, right. What was driving on, by the way, I think she might have still been jailbait because her friend looked a bit young as well. So, don't tell my mum. Right then. So, what are the things you can look for when you're in set for a girl who is higher probability? Oh, sorry, one other thing is notice that was about my instinct triggering. Right, it was just, I wasn't really paying attention. I was like trying to talk into the mic, and this girl just caught my attention. Right, she's no prettier than a load of the other girls walking past, but something caught my attention. That was my instinct, right? It's in my new book, I call it Spider Sense. I go into a lot of detail in the Adventure Sex book, soon to be released, Upsell. Right, where I talk about all these examples of girls who I fucked, where the reason I fucked them is I was listening to my spider sense. Pre-open, during the set, on the date. There were all these things where logically I couldn't piece together why, but I developed such good calibration over the years that I just knew deep down in my core, this girl is going to fuck, or this girl is ready to fuck, or this girl is ready to take home. I just knew it, even though logically there was no things I could put my finger on and say, oh yeah, right, 3 IOIs in a row, or this, that and the other, right? So, it's one thing I've really learned over the last year and a half is the value of instinct when properly cultivated. But, in the interest of all you guys who haven't properly cultivated your instinct, because, you know, maybe a bit newer to this, or, you know, you haven't done as many sets, or you're just fucking retards, I don't know, I'm not really sure who listens to me these days, is, not that I care, I like talking. But anyway, so how can you try and cultivate your instinct? By looking for particular things, actual particular definable things, right? Well, first one's obviously dreamy girl, right? We all know about dreamy. What is a dreamy girl? What are you looking for? Well, she is going to be walking slowly. She's going to be walking slowly like she is a lost deer who has separated herself off from the herd. So, other things is she will seem to have no clear purpose, right? So a girl with a clear purpose, right? Think of a girl on her way to the metro from her work, right? There's a very clear fixed path she's on, right? And she's walked it dozens and dozens of times, right? She's on autopilot, she's in a hurry, she goes in a straight line to the destination. She might have her headphones on, she might have her head down, whatever, but she's going in a straight line, right? There's a sense of purpose there. Right, that would instantly indicate that she's a lower probability girl, right? Lower probability than the average. Right, the opposite of that is higher probability. So a girl who's sauntering slowly, who's wandering in a kind of curvy, kind of not a straight line type of way, a girl who stops and then starts, a girl who changes direction, a girl who stops to look at something, right? Like, you know, the English word was, meandering, I believe. But a girl who is meandering is a higher probability. Right, I think girls, when they want a guy to talk to them subconsciously, you know, because they're at that stage of their ovulation cycle, or they're at that situation in their life where they don't have a man, or they're just of the temperament of a girl who likes to meet guys, is they will meander. Meandering is a good sign of high probability, so watch for it. Right, other thing, I'm always looking at girls' eyes. When girls go past me on the street from a distance, I'm always looking for girls' eyes. What am I looking for? Right, if you want to think in binary terms, are they open or closed to the world? So closed is low probability, open is high probability. Right, what's close to the world? Well, head down, straight forward, right? The girl's looking down at her phone, she's looking at her fucking feet, she's looking at the floor, but basically her eyes don't move, they don't engage with the world, they don't draw in the stimulus of the world. Another example would be a girl staring straight forward, right, like the kind of resting bitch face. So a girl walking down the street staring straight forward, her eyes never wavering, right, like a horse with blinkers on. Again, what's that telling you? It's telling you she's closed to the world. Subconsciously, she's telling the whole world to fuck off and not bother her. So that's a low probability. High probability, her eyes are engaging with the world, right? Her eyes wander. So it could be like a tourist, where the eyes are wandering side to side, looking at the buildings, looking at the red London bus going by, right? That's an example. That's one of the reasons why we tend to look for tourist girls in London. But, you know, it can be a local girl, and she's just engaging with the world. She looks at people walking past. She looks at the kids playing next to her in the park. She looks at, like, a fast car that goes, well, whatever it is. But, like, stimulus from the world is drawing her attention. Right? That means she's open to the world. A girl who's open to the world is more likely to be open to you opened, right? That's a bit alliterative. Right, what else? Hips. I always look at the hips. Is a girl engaging her hips when she walks? Now, I think a sign of ovulation, horniness, availability, subconscious young girls, is they will put a little lilt or sway into their hips. And that is designed to attract attention, right? Male attention. And whether they will admit it to themselves or others, that's what they're doing. So if I see girls who have this like soft, lilty kind of side-by-side sway in their hips, that suggests high probability. Now, you'll often know the opposite of that. Especially if it's like, 6 p.m. or something, and you get the after-work rush in a city. You'll see the office girls coming out, and they look like they've been going into weekly dialysis to get all of the horniness and estrogen removed from their blood, and there is no shake in their hips at all. They're very like stiff, almost boyish and mannish in their walk, because their hips just don't move, right? Not only are they walking in a straight line with their head down and their eyes close to the world, but their hips are close to the world as well. So again, low probability. Now, the thing about probabilities is precisely that, it's probability, right? Like, in poker, you could bet a 2-7 offsuit, and then, 2s and 7s come up in the flop to turn the river, right? And you could still win the hand, right? So I'm not saying you're never going to win low probabilities. I'm just saying, by nature, it's low probability, so you're going to bleed your chip stack. So if you're ever feeling a bit low on your chips, you avoid these sets and you go for the high probability. But what I'm not saying is don't ever open these girls. If you see a girl you really fancy, and she's got all the signs of low probability, well, if you still feel like open her, go open her, right? You're not losing that much, right? You can still do them, but, you don't want this to be your bread and butter, or you're just going to wear yourself down. So, those 3 things so far is the meandering walk, the eyes open, pinging around, and the hips. Right, 4th one would be fashion. Right, I never open girls, like ever, who are hiding their body shape. Now, that's not just because they might be fat, but I'll see girls who have you can tell from their face, they're like greyhounds, right? They look like catwalk models and stuff. Beautiful faces, great proportions, and from looking at their jawline and their neck or their upper arms that they're slim, but they're wearing these god-awful fashion, like the fashion you see on catwalks and stuff, like awful fashion, where you can't see their hips, you can't see their legs, they've got these loose trousers on where, you can't see their calf muscles, or they're wearing these ponchos or whatever. I just don't open these girls, right? Now, the main reason I don't open them is I find that deeply unattractive, and it suggests to me that they have no connection to their femininity. But, that's just my preference. Right? But I think a girl who is hiding her body shape is, it's like it's like why Muslim women first wore those fucking ninja suits, the burqas, right? They were worn specifically to stop drawing the attention of the Muslim invaders who were raping them, right? I'm not very good on Muslim history, because, they're all cunts, but some articles where it was saying, the whole reason why burqas were originally used was when the Mohammedans were going out conquering and pillaging and raping, they would occupy these other countries, and then the women of those countries learned that the last thing you want to be doing is drawing attention of the Muslim invaders, so they put these shitty horrible burqas on which completely hide their figure, so that the guys don't freak out and get horny when they see them all the time. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but it doesn't matter, the symbolism is relevant for day game. Right, if you see girls going around in the Western fashion equivalent of a burqa, an ill-fitting, figure-hiding style of fashion, that's telling you that she's not wanting to draw male attention. Right? It's like a girl having short hair. She's basically saying to the world, I'm not interested in men right now, at this time of my life. So that's obviously going to be a low probability opener. If, however, you see girls showing their figure, opposite, right? Now, showing their figure doesn't just have to mean skin. Obviously, girls in like tight, short shorts are showing a bit of midriff or showing a bit of cleavage. You know, their kind of signal into the world is, look, I feel sexual, I feel like a woman, I do like male attention. I mean, I'm actively soliciting male attention here. But, you know, I find jeans are a good example of that. There's a lot of girls in this world will wear jeans, normal jeans, right, all the way down to the ankle, but they're tight. You must have noticed women like tight jeans. Now, if a woman's wearing tight jeans, she's not showing skin, but you can see her hips, you can see the shape of her ass, you can see the contours of her leg, right? She is telling you that she is there to be looked at by men, that she takes pleasure in that. Either generally that's her demeanour, or right now that's her mood. But either way, the lesson's the same, as she wants you to look at her. So again, like, if you look at girls, think to yourself on an instinctive level, is, did she attract my attention in a kind of sexual way? By, you know, how she's dressed. Because there's subtle differences. There's like, one girl might have a leather jacket on, some jeans and a pair of trainers, and she attracts your attention sexually because you can see her shape. And another girl might also have a leather jacket, jeans and trainers, but she doesn't, and the reason is the second girl, they don't fit as well, or the cut of them is less contoured, or, you know, it just doesn't give you that same feeling. So listen to your instinct, is when you look at the girl, did she attract your attention in some kind of sexual way? So I think that's 4, maybe 5 things I just gave you. I mean, I'm going to save all the best ones when I finally write a book about this sort of thing. Right, there's a girl just coming down who, same thing, right, her eyes are wandering a bit side to side, she's meandering, her trousers though are a bit loose, right, let's watch her eyes. Yep, the eyes just wandered over to me. Shall I do this? This one I'd say is borderline, absolutely borderline. But I'll try it anyway. Excuse me. Up, girl in white shoes. Stop. Up. Hey, right. Sorry, right. I hope you speak English. No. A little bit. Come on. Never mind. Well, that's what I call the victory for calibration, when I go in thinking it's going to be a bit so-so. By the way, those of you who heard my earlier grind podcast, that's the example of blowouts that you get where it doesn't feel like a grind. So she gave me this beaming smile, no, walked away, right? It was a blowout, there's no way around it, that was a blowout. But it was one of these like nice polite ones, it was like a big smiley blowout. So, anyway. Right, I think I'll wrap up here. I don't want to give away too much of my best material. But I've just given you 4 or 5 different ways of specific things you can look for, so that you're going to be choosing higher probability sets, which should slightly nudge the percentages of your numbers and give you a better sense of keying into your instinct, right? Where you develop the spider sense of, that girl's going to talk. Right, that was Womanizer's Bible.